I thought the worst part of betrayal would be the moment I found out, but I was wrong. The worst part was realizing how long they had been planning it. My name is Emma, and for 7 years, I believed I was living inside a love story that wasn't supposed to end. My husband, Ryan, wasn't perfect, but he was steady. The kind of man who brought coffee when I didn't ask. The kind of man who kissed my forehead when I fell asleep watching movies. And the kind of man who always said, "I'm lucky you chose me." We lived in a quiet neighborhood where the streetlights always came on too early, and the neighbors always waved too politely. We weren't rich, but we were comfortable. We had routines. We had plans, and for the longest time, I thought those plans included forever. It started with something so small. I almost laughed at myself for noticing. Ryan stopped leaving his phone on the kitchen counter. At first, it was nothing. He'd slip it into his pocket when he got up to refill his water, or he'd turn it face down when I walked in the room. But then it became a habit, a pattern. And patterns don't happen by accident. One evening, while I was washing the dishes, I asked casually, "Are you working on something new at the office?" Ryan barely looked up from his plate. "Just busy," he said. I nodded like that was normal, but something in my chest tightened. Because busy didn't sound like him. It sounded like a man covering a lie. And if you want to know what happens next, stay with me. A week later, he came home late. Not a little late. Late enough that the dinner I'd made was cold, and the candle I'd lit had melted into a sad puddle of wax. When he walked in, his shirt smelled like cologne stronger than usual. He wasn't even looking at me properly. "Traffic," he said quickly. I wanted to believe him. But I'd lived with Ryan for 7 years. I knew his normal, and this wasn't it. That night, he slipped into bed and turned away from me. His body was stiff, like he was afraid of being touched. I stared at his back in the dark, listening to his breathing, and I swear, I could feel the distance growing quietly, painfully, like an invisible wall being built brick by brick. The next day, I found something, and it would change the way I saw my marriage forever. I wasn't snooping. That's what I kept telling myself. I was just cleaning the car. Ryan had asked me to grab something from the trunk, his gym bag, apparently. I opened it, expecting sweat and sneakers. Instead, I found a small velvet box. My heart jumped. A gift. A surprise. My mind raced through every romantic possibility, because that's what a wife does when she still wants to believe love is winning. I opened it carefully. Inside was a necklace, beautiful, delicate, and expensive looking. For a second, I almost smiled. Then I noticed the small paper tucked underneath. A receipt, and written on it, in black ink, "For Claire, love you." My fingers went numb. Claire. I knew that name. Everyone knew that name, because Claire was his coworker, and she wasn't just any coworker. She was the woman he always said was too dramatic, too loud, too emotional. The woman he claimed he couldn't stand. My throat tightened. My stomach turned. I sat right there in the passenger seat, staring at the necklace, feeling like my entire life was sliding out from under me. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just whispered, "No," like the word could undo it. But the truth doesn't reverse itself. It only waits until you're ready to face it. That evening, Ryan came home early. Too early. He kissed my cheek and asked, "Everything okay?" His voice was sweet, but his eyes searched my face like he was hunting for evidence. I almost wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled. "Yeah," I said softly, "just tired." Ryan relaxed, like he'd passed a test, and in that moment, I understood something terrifying. He wasn't just cheating. He was managing the lie. He was calculating, planning, and that meant it had been going on longer than I wanted to admit. But the worst part wasn't the necklace. The worst part was what I discovered the day after. When I followed him, I didn't plan it like a spy movie. I didn't wear sunglasses or sneak dramatically. I just drove behind him, hands shaking, heart pounding because my instincts were screaming louder than my pride. Ryan told me he had a late meeting, but instead of heading to the office, he drove across town to a small cafe near the river, and when he parked, I parked a few spaces away. I sat there staring through my windshield like I was watching someone else's nightmare. Then I saw her. Claire. She stepped out of her car, wearing a beige coat and that effortless confidence women have when they know they're being chosen. She didn't look nervous. She looked comfortable, like she belonged there. Ryan stepped out. He didn't hesitate. He walked straight to her. And then, without checking who might be watching, he kissed her. Not a friendly kiss. Not an accidental kiss. A kiss that said this isn't new. A kiss that said this has happened many times before. I couldn't breathe. My hands tightened so hard on the steering wheel. My knuckles turned white. And the worst part, Ryan smiled afterward. Like he was happy. Like he hadn't left me at home eating cold dinners and sleeping beside silence. They went inside the cafe. I waited. 10 minutes. 20. 30. Then I saw them again. They weren't just talking. They were leaning in, laughing, touching hands. Claire pulled out her phone and showed him something. Ryan's eyes widened. He laughed, and then I saw something that made the blood drain from my face. Claire placed a folder on the table. Ryan opened it. He stared at the pages like it mattered, like it was important, like it was planned. I couldn't hear what they were saying, but I didn't have to, because that folder didn't look like romance, it looked like strategy. It looked like a life being rearranged, and I was the piece they were removing. That night, Ryan came home and acted like the best husband in the world. He brought flowers. He asked about my day. He even offered to wash the dishes, and I stood there watching him like I'd never met him before, because the man in my kitchen was not the man I married. He was an actor, and I was his audience. Later, while he showered, his phone buzzed on the counter. One message popped up on the screen. Claire, tomorrow, 8 p.m. Don't forget what we planned. My stomach dropped. Planned. That word burned like poison. I didn't sleep. I just lay beside him, staring at the ceiling, hearing my own heartbeat like thunder. What were they planning? A surprise? A confession? A breakup? A humiliation? I tried to picture Ryan sitting across from Claire, calmly discussing the end of our marriage like a business deal. And that's when I realized something else. This wasn't an affair fueled by impulse. This was something worse. This was betrayal with intention. The next evening, I followed him again, but what I saw at 8 p.m. nearly destroyed me. Ryan left the house dressed nicely, not office-nice. Dinner-nice. He didn't kiss me goodbye. Just waved and said, "Don't wait up." I waited anyway. In my car. Across the street from the cafe. At exactly Dan Wuscherbaffen. Claire walked in at 8:03 p.m. Ryan arrived. They sat at the same table as before. And then, another person joined them. A man in a dark suit carrying papers. A professional. My heart stopped. A lawyer. I couldn't hear them, but I could see their body language. Ryan leaned forward. Serious. Claire nodded confidently. The lawyer spread documents across the table. Ryan signed something. Claire smiled. And then, Claire reached across the table and squeezed Ryan's hand like she'd won. Like this was the moment she'd been waiting for. I felt dizzy, my vision blurred, because now I knew. They weren't just cheating, they were building a new life, and erasing me from the old one. I don't know what kind of strength possessed me. Maybe it wasn't strength, maybe it was survival. I got out of my car and walked toward the cafe. Every step felt like walking into fire. When I opened the door, the little bell chimed softly. They all looked up. Ryan's face went pale. Claire's eyes widened then narrowed, and the lawyer looked confused, like he didn't expect a wife to show up in his paperwork. I walked straight to their table. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just placed my hands on the table and said calmly, "So this is what you planned?" Ryan stammered. "Emma, wait. This isn't." Claire cut in sharply. "Emma, don't make a scene." I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was unbelievable. "You're telling me not to make a scene?" I said, voice shaking, "while you sit here planning my destruction like a scheduled meeting." Ryan stood up. "Please, can we talk outside?" "No," I said, "we're talking here, in front of your little team." The lawyer cleared his throat. "Ma'am, I'm not sure what this is," Ryan snapped. "Just give us a minute." The lawyer hesitated, but gathered his papers and stepped away, and then it was just us. Me. Ryan. Claire. A triangle, made of betrayal. Ryan finally exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for months. "We were going to tell you," he said, "after you signed everything." I asked. He didn't answer. Claire leaned back in her chair, crossing her arms like she was the rightful wife. "Emma," she said, "you and Ryan haven't been happy for a long time." I stared at her, stunned by the audacity. "Don't speak for my marriage," I whispered. She shrugged. "I'm just saying, you were comfortable." He wanted passion. He wanted a life that didn't feel dead. That word "dead," it hit me like a slap. I turned to Ryan. "Is that how you talk about me?" I asked softly. "Like I'm something dead you needed to replace." Ryan's eyes shimmered. For a second, I saw guilt. But guilt doesn't fix anything once the damage is done. He looked at me and said, almost quietly, I didn't mean for it to happen like this. And that's when I felt something inside me snap. Not my heart. Not my spirit. Something deeper. My attachment to him. Because I suddenly understood, a man who truly loves you doesn't plan your pain. He doesn't schedule your heartbreak. He doesn't sit in cafes smiling while your world collapses in silence. So I nodded slowly. Okay, I said. Then let me help it happen properly. Ryan blinked. What? I pulled the velvet box from my purse. The necklace, Claire's necklace, and I placed it on the table. I found it in your gym bag. I said calmly. So at least we can stop pretending. Claire's lips parted. Ryan looked like he might throw up. I leaned closer and said the words that made my voice stop shaking. You thought I was going to beg. I looked at Ryan. You thought I was going to cry and negotiate my worth. Then I looked at Claire. You thought you won. And then I straightened up. But you didn't plan for one thing. Ryan swallowed. What? I smiled, cold, steady. Final. I'm not the woman you can erase. Silence swallowed the table. Then I turned and walked away. And the moment I stepped out of that cafe, I finally cried. But not because I lost him. Because I realized I had been holding on to someone who stopped choosing me a long time ago. The next morning, Ryan came home like a ghost. He tried apologizing. He tried explaining. He tried begging me to understand. But I didn't need explanations anymore. I needed freedom. I hired my own lawyer. I opened my own bank account. I stayed with my sister for a few nights, then came back to the house not to fight for it, but to reclaim myself. Ryan moved out within 2 weeks. Claire didn't move in. Not immediately, because life isn't as romantic when the secret becomes real. And something strange happened after he left. The air felt lighter. The silence wasn't painful anymore, it was peaceful, like the house had been holding its breath, and finally exhaled. A month later, Ryan called me. I miss you, he said. I held the phone calmly. Do you? I replied. Or do you miss the version of me who forgave everything? He didn't answer. I didn't yell. I didn't insult him. I just said, softly, you planned a life without me. So now you get to live it. And I hung up. That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror. I looked tired, but I looked alive, and for the first time in a long time I believed I was going to be okay. No, I believed I was going to be better than okay. Sometimes betrayal doesn't break you. It reveals the strength you forgot you had. If this story touched your heart, like, share, and follow for more powerful stories about love, loss, and finding yourself again.